Just your policies on reform for TennCare in Tennessee.
Okay, great. It is a huge issue. TennCare is Tennessee's program of Medicaid. It's how we help our most needy citizens who can't afford health care. Here's the problem you have in health care, and again, regardless of what you do next in life, you need to understand all the issues around health care. Health care costs to our country as a whole, everybody, have been going up about 8 or 10% a year on average, okay? But the government's revenues have either been flat or going up 2% a year, say roughly. Well, if health care is about a third of your budget and it's going up 10%, but your overall revenue that's coming in is either only up flat or 2%, you have some real cost pressures put on you from how you're going to afford that. So we've had to look at all sorts of things to do. Ultimately, you've talked about reform in TennCare. I think it's a bigger question about reform in Medicaid. Medicaid is what, TennCare is what's Medicaid everywhere else. As a system, the person who receives health care doesn't really pay for it, okay? In almost all cases, whether you be a TennCare recipient or whether you're on an insurance plan. And so you don't really pay any attention to what something costs. You go to the doctor and they say, well, let's take a CT scan and an MRI. And none of us ever go, oh, really, how much is that going to cost? Because somebody else is paying for it, right? And because there's not enough economic skin in the game, if you will, those costs keep coming. You don't do that with anything else. You don't go to the grocery and the butcher says, you look like you need 6 ribeyes and 2 chickens and 8 pork chops. And you go, great, that's perfect. No, you go, oh really? How much are those? Now, obviously, healthcare decisions are much different than supermarket decisions. But until there's some economic tension invested in the system to where people say, oh, I want to think about that before I do that, and the cost involved, I think we're going to have a problem. The big debate going on in the country right now, President Obama passed the new health care plan 2 or 3 years ago, and now Congress is debating Medicaid and how we're going to control the costs of that, and how Medicaid and Medicare for that matter. And how that plays out on the national scene. As a country, we've realized we can't keep paying for this. Now the question is, who's going to come up with a solution that will be politically feasible? Which is, if it was easy, somebody else would have already done it, just to be honest with you. So I'm going to push for systems that encourage a little bit more economic reality in our healthcare decisions so that we can always take care of those most vulnerable.